from Poovulagin Nandargal, and Dr. Anurekha, Station Head, MOP Community Radio Station, Dean, Research and Consultancy, MOP Vaishnav College for Women.
I request Dr. Archana Prasad, Principal, MOP Vaishnav College for Women, to felicitate our dignitaries with a floral welcome and present the memento. We are also happy to present an exclusive certificate that represents a tree that has been planted in the name of the dignitaries. I now call upon Dr. Archana Prasad, our principal, to deliver the welcome address.
Okay, sorry. Good morning, happy day. Dignitaries on the dais, Mr. P. Sainath, former Rural Affairs Editor, The Hindu, Mr. Sundarajan from Poovulagin Nanbargal, not just Poovulagin Nanbargal, but I think MOPCRS in Nanbar also. You will know why, I will tell you in a couple of minutes from now. Dr. Anurekha, Dean Research, Head MA Communication, faculty, colleagues, heads of department of various programs, faculty members in charge of MOP CRS, Ms. Mahalakshmi and Ms. Kirti, student delegates from other colleges, members from Poovulagin Nanbargal, and students from the journalism, sociology, and communication programs of MOP Vaishnav College. A warm welcome and a happy morning to all of you. It is not often that you come across a resume that you feel honored just to read. And today is one such occasion where I will not be brief because I am so honored to present before you Mr. P. Sainath. Mr. P. Sainath began his career as a full-time rural reporter and went on to become a rural editor at The Hindu. He has written for 40 years extensively on social and economic inequality, deprivation, and poverty in rural India. His writings that include about 40 reports on a nationwide project on Dalits went on to become a major evidence for the national public hearings on atrocities against Dalits. His series, where he interviewed the last living generation of freedom fighters and recorded their testimonies, became an archive which was called The Last Heroes, Foot Soldiers of Indian Freedom. Wearing many hats and wearing them with ease, he's also a photographer, and he chronicled his personal journey through rural India by taking photographs. These photographs went on to become an exhibition as well as a digitized archive called Visible Work, Invisible Women, Women and Work in Rural India. Great people don't keep their expertise to themselves. They believe in passing it on to the next generation. With over 35 years experience in teaching, he was the first ThoughtWorks Chair Professor in Rural India and Digital Knowledge at the Asian College of Journalism. He's delivered lectures in journalism across the world in Harvard University, Columbia University, New School for Social Research, and Monash University. Over the last 5 years, he's been training and teaching editors and reporters as a part of his latest initiative that he calls People's Archive of Rural India. Sir, I'm so honored that you are here with us today, and I'm very, very happy that we could bring together our journalism students to listen from such a person as you, sir. He was the recipient of the Fukuoka Grand Prize in 2021, which was Japan's most prestigious award for journalism. He then went on to get the 2007 Raman Magsaysay Award, which is called the Asian Nobel Prize. And I quote from the citation, "It was in recognition of his passionate commitment as a journalist to restore the rural poor to India's national consciousness. He was the first reporter in the world to win the Amnesty International Global Human Rights Journalism Prize in the inaugural year of the award in 2000. Having won over 50 awards, I read somewhere, sir, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that he turned down the highest civilian award, the Padma Bhushan, given by the Indian government, saying that it is not in place for a journalist who is supposed to critique a government to receive awards from the same. Sir, you also stand as a symbol of the highest journalistic ethics that I hope some students from this audience would be able to imbibe from you. Thank you once again for joining us this morning. We can't wait to hear from you, sir. I'd also like to introduce Mr. Sundarajan, who helms the Poovulagin Nanbargal. This is a 30-year-old movement that works on socio-environmental issues, and they have been collaborating with our MOP CRS. For the benefit of the dignitaries on the dais, MOP CRS, MOP Vaishnav was one of the first colleges in the country to receive license to operate their own community radio station. This station has grown in strength and reach over the years, and last year it has moved to a mobile application format, so the programs can be heard and listened to across the world. The community radio station is also a recipient of a lot of funds and grants, and one of the projects that is going on right now is on climate literacy, and this has been funded by SMART. We are fortunate to be joined by Poovulagin Nanbargal to conduct and roll out this project. I'm extremely grateful to you, sir. I jumped at the offer of hosting this event when your team met me a couple of weeks ago. A little bit, not to say more than you saw in the anthem, sir, but I believe that a conference of today's order, Women in Climate Change, is most appropriate that we host such a conference, because we're an all-women's organization, and climate change sustainability initiatives have been on our cards as a prime agenda as an institution over the last few years. I welcome you once again to this event and this inaugural session. Thank you.
Thank you for the warm welcome, ma'am. The most awaited session is here. I now request our keynote speaker, Mr. P. Sainath, veteran journalist, founder editor, People Archives of Rural India, to deliver his keynote address. While the stage is being set, we request other dignitaries to join us with the audience.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm deeply honored and very, very glad to be at the MOP Vaishnav College. And I'm sorry for the inconvenience to the other people on the podium. I just want to be able to show you a few slides, which I will as I'm speaking. Now, the thing about women and climate change, actually the links are very obvious and very simple. It's not rocket science to figure that out. You don't have to be an Einstein to see the direct links between women and climate crisis. For one of the biggest impacts, the word climate crisis itself or climate change is a bit of a vanilla term. It conceals. The more correct term, which unfortunately we've all surrendered, because to make people understand, we say climate change. But actually the real correct word is global warming. That's what's happening. The glaciers are melting. The heat waves are killing people. I mean, you've had heat waves killing hundreds of people in Europe, right? So if France has seen 3 heat waves in the last 20 years, which have killed lots of people, mostly older people. So global warming is pretty much, the seas are warming, the Antarctica sheet is, thinning, and you could see a major rise in sea levels. But we say climate change. Climate change is like, it's very vanilla. Seasons change, climatic patterns change. It's just another change. However, if you look at it as global warming, then you're going to see, you see what happens when you tell people global warming, they will ask, it triggers a question. Why is the globe warming? And once you start looking at answering the question, why is the globe warming? Then you come to the meaning of the word Anthropocene, where human activity, specifically major sectors of industry, oil, automobile industry, are really driving climate change very, very rapidly. Yeah, but we don't like people asking those questions. 2 years ago at the World Economic Forum, you've all heard of the World Economic Forum, 180 billionaires, went to Davos in Switzerland, flying in private luxury jets to discuss climate change. Now, how much, what size of a carbon footprint was left by 180 luxury jets to discuss climate change? Again, because change is climate change is like seasons change, it's not very aggressive. Anyway, that said, the links between that and women are very obvious, because when the globe is warming at the rate it does, the first impact is on labor. Guys, who does the labor in this world? Women and girls. Do you know how much labor they do that is unpaid? Anyone has an idea of how much unpaid labor occurs every day, every year in the world? The ILO, the International Labour Organization, calculates, that is a UN body, United Nations body, the ILO, it calculates that in the care sector alone, women and adolescent girls perform unpaid work every day equal to 12.5 billion hours. That means every 24 hours, women and adolescent girls are producing unpaid labor of 12.5 billion hours. You calculate how many billion hours that is in a year, if you can do the math. I can't. Now, what is that labor worth? So the ILO and Oxfam took that labor and calculated it region-wise at the minimum wage. Okay? The minimum wage in South Asia, average minimum wage, they calculated. They took Latin America, average minimum wage. They took Africa, average minimum wage, and calculated. Do you know how much unpaid work you girls are doing every year? Women and adolescent girls. $10.8 trillion. You know what a trillion is? It's 12 zeros. I can't fit it in my head. $10.8 trillion every year. Do you know what $10.8 trillion is? $10.8 trillion is greater than the combined market value of all the top 5 great tech companies. All of them together, the 5 big tech companies, come to slightly less than that value. So the unpaid labor of women and adolescent girls is greater than the value of all your tech giants, technology, infotech giants in the world. That's how much labor is produced. Yeah. And this is, as far as I could make out from the ILO docs and records, this is in the care sector. We don't have calculations for other sectors. Yeah. But it is in fact wrong to say that women hold up half the sky. They hold up a hell of a lot more than that. Much more than that. Now, what happens in this? Let's look at global warming and the basic tasks that poor women perform. Now, you know, one of the wonderful things that these economists, forgive me for talking about them, but what these mainstream economists do is to tell us that the promise of capitalism is that hard work, and you can also be a billionaire like Mukesh Ambani or Gautam Adani or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. If you work hard, you can also be like that. You know, there's a basic flaw in this argument. If hard work made you a billionaire, every woman in rural India, Africa, and Latin America would be a billionaire. Does anyone work harder than that? But we know that there are no billionaires amongst these women. So it means that billionaires are making their money through ways other than hard work. Right? It's not just hard work. In India, I would say 100% rural women and 85% urban women would be billionaires if you judge by hard work. However, what is the nature of the work of, say, a woman sitting in deep interior South Tamil Nadu or say in the hills of Uttarakhand, wherever? 3 basic functions: fetching fuel, fetching water, fetching firewood, fetching fuel. These are the basic tasks that come up for a woman. Do you know that fetching fuel, water, firewood, a rural Indian woman can spend 6 to 8 hours of her day every day on those 3 chores. In the hills of Uttarakhand, in the hills of Jharkhand, in Maharashtra, in Thane, in the hilly areas, young women's qualification for marriage, they want to know how much water can she fetch. Okay? You are actually this is part of your marriage negotiation. How much water can you fetch? I have been present at such negotiations. You'll find one such story in my book, The Hills of Hardship, where if a woman is strong and can fetch more water, walk more distances, walk more, climb more hills, then she is considered a very suitable girl for their boy. And you will spend the rest of your life fetching fuel, food and water for their boy. Now, what happens when the warming happens? The amount of water shrinks. Droughts grow. The forest begins to decline. Now maybe that was taking 4 to 5 hours of your day every day. Now it will take 8 hours, 10 hours. In the drought areas of Bid in Maharashtra, you can see it when Ramanathapuram has one of its droughts, you can see it. How much the labor of the woman goes up. Second, not only does the sun, not only does the warming shrink natural resources, it's also blazing down on that woman while she is at work. You will find that all surveys show you that women and girls are more likely to suffer heat stroke when there is a heat wave on. Once in Telangana, and combine that with poverty. Women are more dependent than men on natural resources. Okay, they go and collect stuff, they bring stuff, they bring it home. But women have less access to those resources because women are poorer. Women are much poorer than men because they don't own resources. In this country, 8 to 10% of women have land in their names. Otherwise, they're completely dependent. In the state of Maharashtra, I was born and brought up in Tamil Nadu, but in the state of Maharashtra, we have documented cases where a woman is married off, loses her husband or is abandoned by her husband, comes back to the family home and works as a laborer because she has no claim to that land. This happens in many parts of the country. This is your country, this is your society, face up to it. If you want to change the reality, you've got to first admit the truth about ourselves. Then, now what happens as the resources grow fewer, and the food supply of the woman shrinks fastest. Now, in an average Indian rural or urban family also, what the heck? What's the difference? Who eats last and least? Yeah. So first, she feeds the husband, the husband's parents if they are there. Then she feeds the children. Yeah. And she is duty bound to feed the boy better than the girl. And last, she eats herself whatever is left. Now, with warming and climate change is affecting agriculture so tremendously, and as it is, 43% of the work of physical labor in agriculture is said to be women. That's absolutely a bogus figure. It's up to 60% of all labor done in Indian agriculture is done by women. Now, the workload is growing. The warming is burning her head off. Just look at who does what work. Okay. Now, every one of you, this being Tamil Nadu, every one of you has seen paddy transplantation, right? In the season. How many men have you seen doing transplantation? Fuel. Fuel. How many men have you seen picking up the cow dung from the streets? Who brings that fuel? That's what women do. Each of these tasks is growing harder and harder. Incidentally, do you know the contribution of women to the national economy? The contribution of women to the national economy in cow dung? The National Institute of Science many years ago did a calculation that women and adolescent girls are saving India billions of dollars each year. Why? Because if you didn't collect that fuel, you'd have to import petroleum products, which is the highest share of your import budget, of your import expenditure. You'd have to import petroleum products. If all the women said, no, we are not going to collect firewood, we are not going to collect dung. Now, but the nature of our society and of most societies in the world is that we don't calculate this unpaid labor. Women are dying doing the job of fetching food and water. Women are dying of illness from the heat stroke that comes with. I will give you specific examples and I'll show you some of the things women do under climate change. Now, if that is and especially say when drought comes along, what happens? The distances you walk for the water are much further. Now, when all of this is happening, that share of the food declines, the amount of labor increases. Okay, just a little number for you on one thing about why that figure is not included. Most of unpaid labor, that's why the ILO did the study. Unpaid labor is not calculated in your GDP. It's not calculated. Women's work is not calculated in your gross domestic product. To my mind, that gives the whole other meaning to the word gross. So it's not calculated in that labor, in the GDP. Now here's the funny thing. Those billions of dollars that women and girls save from collecting cow dung, it's not going to be counted in the GDP. It's not listed in your stock exchange, right? Cow dung is not listed on your stock exchange. Cow dung is not listed on the stock exchange, but a lot of other bullshit is. Right? Maybe it's a gender thing, cows versus bulls or who knows. But so in every sphere we exclude women from the calculation of the gross domestic product. Now there's another thing that happens as warming increases. As the global warming increases, schools are very badly affected. Schooling is very badly affected. Now there's less and less water at home, and they have to collect that water. They have to collect more fuel. One person can't do it all. So guys, who drops out of school to help mama? Yeah. So women's education is also devastated. You can see it in any drought area. More intense the drought, be it Maharashtra and Ramnad, the more intense the drought, the higher the dropout rate of girls. And typically, girls dropping out of school, very few of them go back to it. Boys dropping out of school have a better chance after 2 years or 3 years of resuming, not girls. You're out, you're out. The next issue is how to prove that you are worthy of getting enough water to marry that boy. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're reduced to. So, look at it. It affects their health, it affects their labor, it affects their livelihoods. Much of the, and it destroys their livelihoods, it hurts their food supply, yeah, and it devastates their everyday life and health. So the links are very, very clear in what is the link between. Oh, there's another way you can look at it right from Tamil Nadu also. All post-disasters, whenever there's a disaster, you will find, and climate change is spurring more and more disasters, right? It's spurring more and more disasters. Remember the one you had? Some of you may have just about been born or not yet. 2004 December, tsunami. Now all the studies of tsunami and other catastrophic climate events, extreme weather events, shows us one thing. In the post-disaster relief efforts, women and girls have much less access to the relief materials. Those are usually monopolized by men. Men go to the queues. Men are pushing their way to the front. The official who's been brought up in our typical Indian family will deal with the man, not with the woman. The man can be more assertive. If a woman tries being assertive in that queue, she'll be thrown out or beaten up. All the studies of post-tsunami Tamil Nadu, many studies of catastrophes elsewhere, even if you look at the Turkey earthquake or whatever, women and girls have much less, women and children who are, an extension of that woman, have much less access to the relief materials that come in all post-disasters. Yeah. Also, when you weaken the state of the human being's body, do you know that if you look at the, say, various ailments coming up, say like malaria, dengue, that immediately has an effect on maternal and neonatal health episodes. They are much more vulnerable. They are much less fed. They are much less well fed. They are much more vulnerable. So you have, with dengue, with malaria, with anything, even in long COVID, the effects are much more on poor women and poor girls than on anyone else. That is simply the fact. And also the nature of labor. Warming is going to affect disproportionately those who do the most work under the sun. Now there's a district in Rajasthan, there's a district called Churu. There is a district called Churu. It is an extraordinary place. I'll just, in a moment. Yeah, you can start with it, but that's Tamil Nadu, so I'll come to that one, the first. But I'll tell you in a minute. Churu district there is no other place quite like it on earth, because in May 2021, Churu was the hottest place in the world at 53 degrees. It was for several days the hottest part of the world. But you know what? In winter, it was the coldest place. In winter, it was the coldest place in the northern plains. Outside the hills, it was the coldest. Now, within 3 months, what was the hottest place in the world becomes the coldest part of the northern plains of India, what is the impact it's having on its people? And you go and look in Churu, who are the agricultural laborers? Who are the women? Who are those? When you think of weaving, you think of men, because the key visible functions are done by men, but an unbelievable amount of work in weaving is actually done by women. Okay? You go to Churu and see, and you'll immediately know. You'll know how many girls have dropped out for the two weather extremes. You'll know how many children, and incidentally, our nature as a society, sad to say, is that calling for a woman who is ill is far less likely to seek and receive medical attention than the male of the house if he is ill. The number of episodes of illness may be higher for women, but most women accept it. They don't even seek that medical help when they have episodes. So all these ways. Now I'm going to show you something from Tamil Nadu. I want to tell you something about PARI, People's Archive of Rural India. Incidentally, you should know that we publish every day in 15 languages, including Tamil. Okay? We publish in Tamil, we publish in Gujarati, Kannada, Malayalam, Telugu. We publish in Hindi, Bhojpuri, Chhattisgarhi, Assamese. We publish in 15 languages daily. And in that, I'm going to show you some things from, say, Tamil Nadu. What is our principle on climate change? PARI, the principle of PARI's coverage of climate change is the same as our principle on all other coverage. Tell the story through the everyday lives of people, number one. Second principle, the people affected by climate change are the best source for journalists. I want all the journalism students to remember that. We have covered climate change through the voices and lived experience of the those on the front lines of climate crisis. I'm very pleased to tell you that some of the cutting edge work on climate reporting has come from my colleague Kavita Muralidharan, who is here, and our photographer Palani Kumar, who is he here? No, I don't think he's here today. Yeah. And I'm going to show you something about it. In the tip of Tamil Nadu, every day, in season, I'm sorry, not every day, Palani shot this beautiful essay for which actually Kavita did the text. There are women in the fishing communities. Guess what their office commute is? Their office commute is 300 meters because they get out of the hut and they walk into the sea. Okay? Now they walk into the sea and dive 4 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters. To do what? To collect seaweed. They are called seaweed harvesters. Yeah? Maybe I'm not pressing the button right. This one? Yes. Oh, this is, I'll come back to these later. These are your seaweed harvesters. Tamil Nadu. This is in Bharati Nagar in Ramanathapuram. An unusual activity of the fisherwomen keeps them more in the water than on the boats. But climate change and overexploitation of marine resources, these women combine all those effects I told you about. The work is getting harder, the heat is getting greater, The seas are warming, giving them less of seaweed. They're in every way. They dive several meters into the water in their saris, everything, pick up that seaweed and bring it to you know what we can do. Okay. I wanted to take you through the headline to the actual story. You can see it on Pari. There are 56 pictures, brilliantly shot underwater, where our photographer went with the women with a very primitive GoPro number 1. Now it's GoPro 14 or 15. Now these women dive into that water. They pick, what does that seaweed do that they collect? In Ramanathapuram, what does the seaweed do? It goes into the making of medicines and pharmaceuticals on a very large scale. Now the big pharmaceutical companies, the big drug companies, make millions and millions of dollars from that seaweed she collects, for which she gets a few rupees, couple of hundred rupees per kilogram, if she is lucky. But at the global level, and not even at the national India level, the pharmaceutical corporations make millions. Now that seaweed is used in drugs, prescription drugs, in medicines. Incidentally, it's also used in cooking materials like jelly. It goes into the making of jelly. So here is a gigantic contribution at some risk by poor women in Ramanathapuram, Tamil Nadu. What do they get in return for it? Now these women, we consider them experts. Pari's attitude is to treat them as experts. They will tell you about the seaweed is getting less. The work is getting harder. The seas are getting rougher. Yeah. And it's telling on their bodies, it's telling on their produce. Then what they try doing, they get onto a boat, they have a boat, and take it out, go out to the nearby islands, where they will be arrested by the forest department. Yeah. They are actually, you don't arrest the pharmaceutical companies, but you arrest these women for trespassing. They're not even on the island. Seaweed is collected a little distance from the shore. Right? This is their life. It's just stunning the amount of work that goes into this. Another corner, and people unlike us who can have a seminar on climate change, people are trying to think up their own solutions. People are trying to say, we need to educate ourselves. So 2.5, 3 years ago, Kavita did this fantastic story on a fishing community in Mandapam, Pamban in Ramanathapuram district. Now, what do you think the fisher folk did there? You have a community radio, right? You guys? The fisher folk of Pamban set up their own radio station for their community. At least one of the major reasons inspiring them was to try and understand what was happening around them. And it is the most unusual radio station anywhere. You know why, guys? The DJs walk out of the sea. They're all practicing fishermen. They walk out of the sea into the studio and are doing DJ work there. Sometimes they're reporting on their cell phone from the sea. Kadalosai, the sound of the waves, is the name of that station. And you can see older generation fishing community listening avidly to the radio. That is their station. It is discussing issues serious to them. Kavita met one of the women who participated in a discussion. it was the women who were able to tell us how many species of fish have disappeared with overfishing. That is the human activity that is causing the change. Overfishing, big trawlers, all of them. You know, in a sea, in the waters, there are many different channels. You know, some fish shoals will come in some channels, some fish will come in other channels. So they were discussing how many different species of fish, and she rattled off some 20, 30 names of different fish which come in these channels. Then the question to her was, but what about those other species which you didn't mention? Her reply was, oh, those fish, you can look for them in Discovery Channel. This is the Kadalosai radio station, and they are celebrating a particular day, and all these guys are involved in that studio. The studio, the radio station, by the way, is run by a woman, Gayatri, correct. It's run by a woman, and actually some of these boys literally come back from fishing in the evening, and they are the DJs in that station. Now, another of our reporters went in Andhra Pradesh, in the Uttarakosa areas of Andhra Pradesh, and went after 2 years. His name is Rahul M. He wanted to go back to the village, and he went on the basis of the Google map, which took him to the middle of the sea waters. So that he's asking someone in the East Godavari, not Uttarakosa, sorry. And he's asking someone about a house that he had been previously to. And the chap is telling him, oh, that house, it's in the sea now, there. This had happened in 3 years. In 3 years. Damn it, that's 36 months. It's less than the time you take for your undergraduate degree. Okay, if you count exams and final exams and stuff. In that time, if your house is again there, the women and the fisher folk, the nature of their work, the drying of the nets, the marketing of the catch, the cleaning and cutting of the catch, there's a hell of a lot more to fishing than just catching the fish. Okay? That work also goes up. Now, in the Himalayas, this is the eastern Himalayas, the birds are disappearing. There is a huge decline. Yeah. Incidentally, you would not believe it, and you would find it very difficult to identify with what I'm saying. But insects play a very major role in our lives. 70% of the world's food is dependent on pollination. Yes. 70% of the world's food output comes from crops and plants dependent on pollination. Now, if those species of insects decline, your food production will fall 25 to 30% over a decade or 2 decades. Now, you know that, in fact, there are also a lot of communities for whom some insects are part of their diet. You can find it in the Madhya Pradesh market, in the Adivasi areas. Certain kinds of ants, certain kinds of insects are for sale. This is nothing to be ashamed of. It happens all over the world. The Aboriginals use a lot of insects in their diets in Australia. But all these are affected. All these are affected as the climate gets worse. Now in Arunachal, this is happening. The bird species are coming down. Oh, when bird species come down, one of the things is there are two kinds of insects, okay? There are predatory pests and there are, I love that word, scientists call them beneficial pests. Beneficial pests are those that do your pollination, that keep down the population of predator pests. Birds keep down the population of predator pests quite a bit. Now if the birds start coming down, then it's like, by the way, if on the edges of the forest the number of snakes decline, the number of rats increase and destroy the farmer's production. That also happens. This, would you believe, it's not Barmer in Rajasthan. I did this story in 2019. This is Andhra Pradesh. We are talking about southern peninsular area. It's become a desert, 3,000 acres of desert. Why? Because of decisions on food growing. You know, who decides what crop to grow? Men. Who shapes agricultural policy? Men. Who decides that this particular seed will be used? Men. Women preserve seeds. You've had in the last few years 2 women receiving Padma Bhushans for saving traditional seed. Padma Shri for protecting traditional seed. Yeah. Now, this area, it's called Dargah Honur. It's on the edge of Anantapur district in Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. It is, strictly speaking, in the state of Andhra Pradesh. For 50, 60 years ago, the fields were covered in millets, which is, by the way, what Indians largely used to eat before British rule. After that, we started eating more wheat and rice because they recognized wheat and rice. They were looting your country, taking your wheat and rice out of the country, exporting it, even when your people were dying in millions of famine. But the millets, we replaced in 1960 with cash crops. Millet is a food crop. That includes ragi. Do you know your state, Tamil Nadu, references to growing ragi go back in Sangam literature 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, the people of Tamil Nadu were growing ragi, which now the government is telling you, please grow millets. It's a good thing. Your ordinary people knew that 2,000 years ago. So this was another thing that happened. This was covered in millets in Andhra. Then we brought the cash crop of groundnut. We brought an external groundnut, not from that area, and put it in. We brought that external groundnut. The local species of groundnuts did not flourish. This alien species demanded much more water. And a district whose bearing capacity of bore wells, it has a bearing capacity of, it's all right. It's a bearing capacity of 70,000 bore wells. The experts have warned, you cannot have another bore well in this district. Bearing capacity 70,000. Actual number of bore wells 3 lakh to 4 lakh. So the water has gone, rivers have dried up, and you have this desert across 2,000, 3,000 acres. There's one fun part about this desert. The fun part about this desert is that Tamil movie industry, Telugu movie industry, Kannada movie industry no longer goes to Rajasthan for the desert fight scenes. You can drive 4 hours and reach it. From Bangalore, it's 1.5 hours, 2 hours to get into the edge of Anantapur. Okay. So there have been great movies shot there. Vijay's Jayam Manade, Victory is Ours in Telugu, was shot there. All desert fight scenes, and everybody believes it's shot in Barmer or... So it reduces costs for your film industry, but it has devastating costs for your human beings. Okay, that's another thing that happens there. Just before I went there, government sent a team in a nice big SUV to study what was happening there. So the SUV with the board officers went into the desert, and the SUV got stuck, and they had to be dragged out with bullock carts and tractors. These are the bugs. You see, the trouble with bugs is they are not warm, furry creatures like dogs and cats, right? You can't hug them. You don't even dream of that you might do in your nightmares, but not otherwise. But that bug is a pollinating bug. It keeps your food supply. What is happening with climate change is that now the National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, with whom we coordinate and work, they are telling us 40% of India's pollinating species are rapidly declining. Some of them are going extinct. Imagine the impact on your food production. These are the Bakarwals, the nomadic pastoralists of the Kashmir and Ladakh and those areas. Now, you know your Kashmir wool, where it comes from? It comes from those animals. It has to be grown, they have to be reared at a particular level. Now, people rear these kind of goats and sheep, and they rear yak. The women have to do all the clipping and cutting and saving of, and the milking and all that stuff. Now, what's happened to the yak? The yak is a very unique creature. It can happily survive at minus 35 degrees. Minus 15 to 20 degrees, it dies. Plus 15 to 20 degrees, that's a yak heat wave. 15 degrees is a yak heat wave. So they die. They died 300 of them died in 1-2 days in Sikkim 3 years ago when our reporter went there. Now, they also have tried to create solutions. They look at the fact that you and I have done, we have the problem. They are looking, ordinary people, give them that respect and dignity. They search for solutions. Yeah. So you know what these chaps are doing? The yak are dying because they can't take warmer weathers. The glaciers are melting. In the areas where they used to graze, the temperatures have hit 15, 20 in summer. So what is the answer to that? You take them higher. You take them higher. Do you know that Indian farmers, nomadic pastoralists, are using the highest grazing grounds in the world between 15,000 and 19,000 feet above sea level? Can you imagine the work that requires? Man, woman, everybody, can you imagine the work that requires? Yeah. But they're trying to look for solutions. That is your yak. Then because the yak is dying at these temperatures, they've tried another workaround. They are hybriding, breeding the yak with highland cattle to create a new animal species called zomo, which is more resilient to heat, but it is sterile. The male zomo cannot reproduce. It's only good for the wool and the meat. And that's it. for the fur and the meat. So, that was just a few examples. And you can see that in every single case, if you think about it and apply your mind, it is not hard to find the connections between climate crisis and what happens to women. Even in all the herding in the nomadic pastoralists, who's got to feed the livestock? Who's got to milk them? Who's got to do every damn thing around them? Women. So what I'm going to do now is to tell you that thank you very much for your patience, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. It can be questions, it can be comments, anything, please. Assuming I have answers. These are very complex issues. Yeah. So if any of you would like to ask a question.
If there are any questions regarding the session, kindly raise your hand from your seats. Our volunteers will reach you.
Yeah.
Sir, regarding the nomads in Kashmir area, sir told that they are taking the yaks to higher levels for their survival. So, if going to too much cold areas, how human beings can survive? But if maybe yaks may survive in that cold climate, but how human beings will survive? What they find solutions for this?
That is precisely the question they are also confronted with, but they have no option but to take the risk. They have maybe 5-10 years from now, we will know the results of it. But they have no option but to take the risk. Like many people in different labor professions, do things that are absolutely dangerous for them, right? But now, if you go to can we get to the very first slides of that? You'll see in Jharkhand, in Godda, women, there is a lot of open cast coal mining. The top 15-20 meters of topsoil is taken and thrown away for the coal below. Now that creates mountains of waste topsoil. In that topsoil, there is 3% to 4% in that topsoil. See that right-hand top picture? Those are women who go and pluck that 3% coal. It's a national energy saving, and it is criminalized by law. So, for helping your country save energy, you can go to jail. Now, you know why they're all walking away now? Because the skies are about to burst. It's the monsoon. Sometimes these mountains of waste are so high, the dumper truck comes and dumps 120 tons of waste soil. The women, highly marginalized, highly poor, you can read about this in my book, Good Drought, they race towards the thing. Some of them get buried alive. 120 tons of soil falling from a great height, cliff height. Now they are running out of the thing because once the monsoon strikes again, the paths are washed out and they can be drawn in like quicksand. They can be trapped in quicksand. That also in the slurry, in the sludge. Yeah. So people take risks not because it's fun or because it's racing on your motorcycle at night on the main road. They take the risk because they have to. They have to feed their children. They have to feed their families. So they take the Bakarwals, the Changpas, the Changpas of Western Himalayas, the Brokpas of Eastern Himalayas. They take those risks. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, you pondered on the subject of unpaid labor that is being subjected on women and adolescent children. Sir, I feel that our country is...
Women and adolescent girls.
Adolescent girls, sorry. So I feel that our country is more giving emphasis on the GDP that is like to get target of 5 billion, but we are not focusing on GDP per capita. So 2023, it says that our country has 2,216 US dollars, that in terms of per capita in India. So if unpaid labor, if it is properly distributed among women and adolescent children, of course GDP per capita will increase, right, sir?
If it is not unpaid labor distributed, paid for. If it is paid for, then it will be incorporated in your GDP. Or GDP is nothing, it's not a miracle. It is just an aggregation of all economic activity. Now, when you are not paid, when that service is unpaid, it is not counted as productive economic activity. Don't blame me, it's the economists. It's not my fault. Okay, I have been campaigning against it for 25, 30 years. The fact is that the work women do at home, in the fields, the incredible amount, just imagine a figure of $10.8 trillion. And I will also tell you this, that's a global figure, but I am willing to bet that the biggest share is India, where there is more of a mama's boy syndrome than anywhere in the planet. So you need to change the principles. Thank you. You need to change the economic principle. You are very right that GDP calculation itself is a fake. The way this, as I said, cow dung is not listed on the stock exchange, but bullshit is. You know, people's shares that are worthless are trading at 1,700 rupees. So we need to change how we understand economics, how we understand, and per capita income, another ridiculously limited measure. Now, how many people are there in this auditorium? 400. Okay. Now there are 400 people in this auditorium and I'm one person. Okay. Now suppose each of them is earning 10 rupees a day, or the NREGS wage of 230 rupees a day, all of them, and I earn 5 million rupees a day. I wish. But okay, now the per capita income of this hall, it will neither tell you their reality nor mine. Whose reality will tell you? My 1 million rupees plus your 200 into 400 rupees, how much is that? 80,000? Huh? 80,000. So 80,000 and 1 million rupees, make it 100,000. So 1 million and 1 lakh rupees, you divide by 401, you get an absurd figure which doesn't tell the reality of anybody. So per capita income, GDP, all these things have to be questioned. GDP itself, the person who brought in the concept never intended that it should be used this way that it is used today. He just saw it as an aggregation of all economic services. We need to see what are those economic services that are left out. They are always connected to women. Yeah. Any other question? Yes?
A pleasant morning to all. I am Dr. Kanis Fatima from Justice Bashir Ahmed Said College for Women. I first of all would like to congratulate MOP Vaishnav College for having conducted such a wonderful event, which is the need of the hour, and especially when it is about women and climate change. And as you rightly said, global warming is the right term. When you hear the word global warming, I think it warns us of something, right? And as you rightly said, we as women are being targeted for so many things. And what is the solution that we are going to give to this world to bring a change in this is the voice that we all have to raise. And we all know the statement, think globally, but you have to act locally. And I think if each and every woman, tries to bring this small change that she wishes to see in the world, I think this global warming issue will not become an issue at all. and all of us would be happy to say that we have really done something for this environment. So I take this forum as a means to request all the young minds here that if each and every one of us try to bring this change, then we don't have to conduct so many meetings and forums to say that we need to bring up climate change. And your facts that you revealed, sir, were really mind-boggling. It made us all think that so much is happening to the women, and as women, we are just silent listeners. We really have to do something towards it.
Okay.
So all my best wishes to this forum and looking forward for a greater change to happen. Thank you.
I would just make a small comment on that in all the discussions that are going on climate change, in all the intergovernmental conferences, discussions, negotiations, how many women are represented in those conferences? Okay, here is the United Nations telling you that in national and global climate negotiating bodies, female representation is less than 30%. Okay, and you are certainly not having the kind of people Pari has. Women farmers, women fisher folk. Yeah, and here you have a very beautiful saying by Mary Robinson, who was President of Ireland and also the Chief of the UN Human Rights Commission. Mary Robinson says this for you girls: climate change is a man-made problem and so must have a feminist solution. Yeah. So that is what that is what I would like to add to your comment. Anyone else?
Hi.
Yes, sir.
No, actually it's a linguistic, ironical thing. For example, you use both the words. For example, you say cow dung. Then you use, after 1 minute, you said bullshit. See, both are same. But bullshit is used very negatively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it very ironical and just an observation. But what again I'm asking is, they used cow dung as fuel, have the common people or the tribal people who are the scientists, didn't they use any other animal shit to create fuel?
Scale. It's the scale on which something happens. By the way, even if you take it literally, which I was being facetious, but even if we take it literally, the number of cows to bull is extraordinarily weighted against bulls. Okay, so cows produce a lot more dung than the male of the species. This is one. Their numbers are incredibly more. Okay, then the second, but I'm saying that I was being facetious. Second, they use the dung of other animals. They do, but nothing on the scale that cows produce. For instance, in Kerala, and I'm sorry, even in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, on the border there is that tribe called Jaina Koroba in the Bandipur forest, etc. Traditionally, there have been nomadic pastoralists, and there was a very beautiful balance between the village. There was a very beautiful balance between the village and the nomads. So, as nomads, the pastoralists, whether in Maharashtra, the Raikars coming from Gujarat and Rajasthan, or the Fakirani Jats coming from Kutch, what they do, they come to your village with huge herds of camels, of basically goats and sheep. And the village makes a trade. What is the trade the village makes? The village gives them services in food, milk, etc. All that the nomadic pastoralists do, pre-cultivation period, I'm sorry, I can't, pre-cultivation season, they park thousands of goats and sheep and hundreds of camels on your soil, and the dung from that is your fertilizer. Okay?
That's in Karnataka.
It happens in many states in the country.
Jain Kurba, because in
No, the Jain, I was giving one example, sir.
camels can
Not camels are not in Karnataka. I said camels from Kutch and Rajasthan. The Jaina Kurbas are sheep herders and other herders, goats. They don't have camels. And in return, the village gives them some services. Now this is breaking down very fast. It's breaking down very fast because we are using a lot of chemical fertilizers and the animals are suffering. So that is also happening. Yeah. But I'm trying to tell you that theoretically or literally or humorously, cow dung is a very major force. Yeah. There's someone there. Could you give her a mic, please? Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir. So good morning. So India is being a signatory party to the UNFCCC, like the United Nations Framework on Convention on Climate Change, and it gives a very big, impacts on the women, the climate change and impacts on the women. What are the steps taken by the Indian government for all these kind of things? So
I think you should ask the Indian government. See, in terms of being a signatory to the accord, we are the first to sign any new convention. We are the last to ever implement it. Child protection, child labor, we have signed every convention. Displacement, 93 UN convention. How many millions of people have been displaced in this country since you signed that agreement? Okay, so I don't even feel competent to tell you about it. The step, in principle, what we say at the international conferences, sometimes it's very good. It's excellent. And then we come back and remove the need for environmental impact assessments for companies wanting to take 80,000 acres of forest in Chhattisgarh and Odisha and destroy them completely. We simply are doing exactly the opposite of what we said in the conference. Yeah. Could you give her the mic, please, someone there? Yeah. Put on the mic.
Hello. Good morning, sir. I'm Oviam Prakash. I'm a third-year journalism student. So recently, there's been a lot of backlash against climate activists who are interrupting entertainment performances like operas or just concerts and to make the concerns known about climate action and global warming. But it's getting a lot of backlash. People are not happy with it. Do you think this extreme? I am somebody who speaks for extremism because I think being a moderate keeps everyone happy, but it doesn't really get anything done. So do you think this is a good approach towards, making climate crisis known, like the awareness about climate crisis known, globally? Or
I can only tell you what we do. What we do is what I showed you, that we look at the crisis through the voices and lived experience of the affected people, of ordinary marginalized people. That woman can tell us more about the nature of fishing in Ramanathapuram district and what changes it has undergone than any expert committee of the government of India can. So you need to start looking at not moderate or extreme, but who is the authentic source? As a journalist, that's what you've got to look at. Who is the authentic source for this? And that's what I would suggest you do. Yes.
Hi sir, good morning.
Morning.
So what I have to ask is, what we as students can do in this helpless situation, this state of capitalism that we are forced to be in, are there any other ways open for us?
I basically would diverge from your position on the idea of students' helplessness. Across the world, some of the leading climate challengers are in their teens. whether it's a Greta Thunberg or someone else. Many leading climate activists are younger than you are. Okay? It's about how to spread the awareness and consciousness. For that, the first requirement is that we educate ourselves. We educate ourselves by acting in concert with the people who are experiencing it much harder than you and I are. That is what I'm saying. Point one, connect with society, connect with the marginalized, connect with the affected. Educate yourself. Then you are at the same time spreading the awareness. One conversation with one of these people, you will feel like you sat through a whole course in a college. Yeah.
Hi sir, happy day.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Happy day. So first of all, thank you so much for your talk. It was really inspiring and really motivating. My question is about the population aspect of the country. So we are increasing in number and we're number one now. So what your comment on that? What do you say about that?
Firstly, I think that is an entirely bogus problem. I'll tell you why. You are increasing in numbers, true. Do you know that your population rate is actually dropping very sharply? Do you know that there is a concept called FRL? You heard of it? Fertility replacement level. Fertility replacement level, which is considered to be the fertility replacement level, is the number of babies being born which will keep the population steady. Okay? 22 Indian states are now below the fertility replacement level, including Tamil Nadu. Okay? It means that, you know, that China made this mistake. They coercively cut that population by saying one child, no more, one child, no more. Today, the Chinese government is offering huge cash incentives to families to have more children because they did away with a generation of young labor. Right? Now, look at Japan. Its fertility replacement level, don't even ask how low it is. Japan is a nation of senior citizens. Who will produce? Who will bring the labor? In India, the southern states, especially Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, AP, Karnataka, in that order, their fertility replacement level fell below the stability point of 2.1 or 2.2 10 years ago. Okay? You are not increasing it. You are not looking at the world and your future generation 20 years from now. When all you guys in 30 years are, 30, 40 years are senior citizens, you will be, and without health care, without young people to look after you, I think you need to reflect on what that future is. The population, do you know that your population, your food production even currently is ample to feed the existing population. So it's about the distribution of food. It's about the distribution of resources. You have so much, you're having record surpluses in your food production, and you're having the largest number of hungry people in the world. In the global hunger index, India, which was always low at 94, has since fallen to 107 out of 121 nations. Do you know that Rwanda, which was rocked by 20 years of civil war, is ranked higher than you are? Do you know that Bangladesh is ranked higher than you are? Bangladesh per capita GDP is increasing at a faster rate. They are looking after health, they are understanding. Also, don't forget that a few years ago, when we were all celebrating new economic policies, we were all boasting. India has the youngest population in the world, remember? Yeah. 20 years you'll have the oldest. 30 years, sorry. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
So you were, sorry, I am Divya. So you were highlighting the knowledge of women in various professions like agriculture, fishing, pastoralists. So what I wonder is that having a degree, whatever it may be, immediately establishes expertise, but to establish the expertise of these women in their professions, it is very tough. It is not automatically recognized. So I was just having this thoughts for some time that they should be given a degree of some sort to make it comparable with others, immediately recognizable.
That is a very astute observation. That's a very astute observation. It speaks to not just women, but generally our contempt for the knowledge of ordinary people. You know, we think that the experts know everything. There's a very beautiful book by Terry Easterbrook. It's called The Tyranny of Experts. Yeah, who come and give you incredible solutions that cause damage that plagues you for 20 years. Because they don't know, they know all the numbers, but they don't know what they're talking about. They've never tilled a field. They've never herded a cow. I'll give you one example, guys, again, against my favorite bugbear, economists. So there was this top city, it's obviously a fun story, but there was this top city economist from a big think tank in the city, driving down the highway to meet his friends in the weekend for a weekend party, and everybody had to take some food to the party. So he was wondering, what will I do, what will I do? And on the lonely stretch of the highway, he saw a shepherd. All that was there in that landscape was a shepherd, the shepherd's dog, which all shepherds have a dog, and hundreds of sheep. Yeah, thank you. And hundreds of sheep. So he thought, okay, here is this illiterate bumpkin. I'm going to get my present for the party. So he got down and went up to the shepherd standing with his dog, and said, I'll bet you $100 against one of your sheep. I'll bet you $100 that I can tell you the exact number of your flock. The shepherd thought for a moment and said, that's impossible. There are some sheep behind the rock. There are some sheep in the forest. There are some sheep at the edge of the woods. How will this guy tell me the correct number? So the shepherd said, okay, $100 or a sheep. And the economist said, you have 973 sheep in your flock. And he was right. The shepherd was stunned that how could he know? How could that guy get the correct number? Now the shepherd could have lied and said you were wrong, but he was an honest man. So he said, okay, damn it. Take the sheep and go. So the economist from the top think tank in the city, he grabbed one of the animals and started running towards his SUV to go to the party. And the shepherd called after him, hey, it's conventional that in a bet you give me a double or nothing. You know, either if I win, I will. So then this guy said, okay, what will you bet? Because he was full of contempt for this man. The guy said, shepherd said, double or nothing, I can tell you your exact occupation and profession. Where you. So this chap said, what would this illiterate idiot know about me? So he said, okay. Still, he was still clutching his prize, desperate to get into the jeep and go, SUV and go. So he said, you're an whiz-kid economist at a big think tank in the city. It was the economist's turn to be stunned, still clutching the prize he had lost. He said, how the hell did you know that? The shepherd said, put my dog down and I'll tell you. He knew all the numbers. So that's the problem of not recognizing the knowledge of others. Yeah. Anyone else? Or?
Sir, apologies for interrupting.
Yeah.
We'll wind up the session due to time constraints.
Yep. Sorry? Yeah.
Thank you for an interactive and inspiring session.
Thank you.
It was interesting to learn about Pari and the alarming issue of climate change and how it affects the female gender. I hope the importance of this issue would have reached all the young minds here today. I now request Ms. Vidya Padmanabhan, Senior Faculty Member, Program of Journalism, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Of all the worries of modern living, I'm sure global warming is topmost. That preoccupies all of us. But we hardly ever spend a moment to think about the ways in which it affects people with some vulnerabilities, like people with disabilities, people below the poverty line, and women. So I thank our speaker, Mr. Sainath, for raising awareness about this, but I also thank him for raising women above victimhood. So if you ever find yourself in Ramnad, keep your ear open for Kadalosai 90.4. Women are bringing some special strength to this fight. So I'm sure all of us can take something from the examples that Sir shared with us. I'm sure all of us will leave a little more empowered to bring our special strength to this fight against climate change. On a quick side note, sir, you have many admirers here in the media department at MOP. Thank you for the work that you at Pari do, and all the people who work at Pari. And we have our own journalism student who is a beneficiary of a Pari photography workshop. So thank you so much for all that you do. I'd like to thank Mr. Sundarajan from Poolagi Nanbargal and all our partners at SMART and Poolagi Nanbargal for making all this possible. As always, our thanks go out to our Secretary, Sri Manoj Kumar Santalia, our Principal, Dr. Archana Prasad, our Vice Principal, Dr. Sumangala Devi, for their unstinting support in all our endeavors. If it benefits students, it's always a yes from them, so thank you for that. Thanks also to Principal Ma'am for delivering the welcome address. Sincere gratitude to our technical infrastructure team for the perfect arrangements as always. And finally, thank you to this audience, because the success of this conference lies in this important message being spread through you, the listeners. So thank you for being a great audience and raising such important questions. On behalf of MOP Community Radio Station 107.8, specifically our station head, Dr. Anurekha, thank you, one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. That was an insightful session. And moving forward, we are all set for the next session of the day. We will begin with the presentation of MOP Vaishnav College documentary. Apologies, we request the participants and the audience to stay seated and calm while the stage is being set. We request the audience to stay silent, please. Audience, please settle down. The event is about to start. I request the volunteers to manage the crowd, please. We request the audience to settle down quickly, please. We request the audience to stay quiet, please.
இதுக்குள்ள மைக்கில் என்ன சொல்கிறேன் இனிமேல் இதுதான் சொல்லுங்க ப்ரோ ஆமாம் ப்ளஸ் வந்து சென்னையில் இருக்குது நண்பர்களுக்காக பாடுவார் 2 சரி சரி
once again request the audience to please settle down quickly. The session is about to start.
+11 அது இது ஓகே என்ன செட்டிங் இது டிரான்ஸ்மிட்டர் புது ஃபோனு நீத்தம்பா ஆன் பண்ண தானே புது ஃபோனு நடுவில் சின்ன 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 கஸ்டமைஸ் பண்ணி பண்ணியிருக்காங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன் என்கிட்டேருந்து வாங்கினது தானே ஒன்று ஏய் பெருசு ஒன்று இல்லை என்கிட்ட யாரோ வாங்கிட்டு போனாங்க யாரும் நான் எடுத்து வாங்கி கேட்டேன் இது ஒன்று தான் ஆனால் இருக்கு
Request the audience to settle down.
எங்க இன்னொன்று என்னடா இது இத்தனை வச்சிருக்காது எதிராக கண்டுபிடிக்கிறது இது ரெண்டு இதோடுது எங்கே பாரு இல்லை இது ரெண்டு இது மார்க் பண்ணியிருக்கு இது ரெண்டு இதோடுது இதோட ஆமாம் ஓகே பேசு ரெண்டுலேயும் ஹலோ 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 ஒரே நிமிஷம் செக் பண்ணி தரேன் ஹலோ ஹலோ கேட்குதா 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 இப்போ கேட்குதா இது என்னன்னு பாரு
Climate change is a planetary phenomenon that will impact all people. Today's discussion highlights the role of women towards the global issue. The next session for today is an enlightening panel discussion. And joining the panel discussion we have amazing panelists. Ms. Supriya Sahu, Chief Secretary, Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Ms. Priya Pillai, Director, State Climate Action, Azad. And Ms. Kavita Murlidhar, Independent Journalist and Translator. I request our Principal, Dr. Archana Prasad, to felicitate our panelists with a floral welcome and present the memento.
Hello. 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 கவிதாக்கா மூணு பேருக்கு மைக்கு அப்படியே கொடுத்துருங்க
Of our association, we are happy to present an exclusive certificate that represents a tree that has been planted in the name of the dignitaries.
Here is the mic. Okay, I should put it here. Yeah. Anywhere it shouldn't rub on the chain.
discussion will be about changing climate and mounting challenges faced by women. What is the way forward? The panel will be moderated by Ms. Kavita Muralidharan. Ms. Kavita Muralidharan is a bilingual journalist from Tamil Nadu with 2 decades of experience covering a wide range of issues from politics to culture and cinema. She was part of the team that launched the Hindu Tamil and was heading the reporting section before moving to India Today Tamil to take over as its associate editor. She has consistently written on human rights and women's issues besides the issues of the marginalized in the state. She had done a series of stories from Sri Lanka on its civil war and aftermath and how it had affected the ordinary citizens of Sri Lanka. Ms. Kavita has won many awards including the Press Institute of India ICRC Award and Vijay Television's Best Women Journalist Award. Her work in translation is outstanding. She is currently working as an independent journalist and contributing to major print and online news magazines while also volunteering with Poo Ulagin Nanbargal. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம். கேக்குதா?
Yes.
Okay, எல்லாருக்கும் வணக்கம். Okay. Actually, Sainath பேசி முடிச்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் there is nothing much left for the panel to discuss because he's like covered everything. பிரியாவும் நானும் அதான் பேசிட்டு இருந்தோம். நாங்கெல்லாம் என்ன பேசணும்னு நினைச்சோமோ இஸ் லைக் covered everything and I'm sure அது உங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருந்திருக்கும். But there are some areas that we wanted to touch. But before that, I really want to introduce both my very illustrious panelists. I'm like really honored to be here along with them. Ms. Supriya Sahu is Additional Chief Secretary of the Government of Tamil Nadu, and she is behind many pioneering efforts to combat climate change, like setting up of climate change mission for Tamil Nadu and that Manjapai Iyakkam, which personally I think I really like it a lot. So she's behind many such important movements, and I'm sure if Tamil Nadu is thinks ahead in terms of environmental justice and climate change, she is the brain behind it. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here and being here. Priya Pillai is a dear friend, but she's also been an activist, social and environmental activist for over 20 years, working on various platforms. Thank you, Priya, for being here. So basically, I thought before I could ask them to speak for maybe 3 to 5 minutes on their thoughts, and the idea is to then ask them questions. But I thought you should know one thing, that how women are disproportionately affected during climate disasters or even during any other natural disasters. I wanted to start by saying that in the recent earthquake in Afghanistan, very recently, 2/3 of the victims were women, and that's because one of them have said that the Taliban government doesn't allow women to step out of their homes. You know, these kind of things. Why Sainath spoke about tsunami? Why were women killed more in tsunami? Because I covered tsunami as in Nagapattinam and in Kadalur, and I saw how the dupattas and saris were tied to the trees, long tresses, long hairs were tied to the trees, and I'm sure in a place like Tamil Nadu, no woman is going to say, no, run to save my life, stripping myself. There are other factors which affect this. There are cultural factors which affect this. There are many such issues because of which during natural disasters women are disproportionately affected. But yeah, I would like to ask Priya to speak about some such issues, and maybe after that Supriya ma'am to, she's doing a lot of efforts on this front. I know she is doing some things that are intended to empower women to combat climate change. So I would request her to specifically speak on that. Priya, can you start?
Thank you, Kavita. It's a pleasure to be here in MOP College among so many young students, women as well as men. I can see a lot of boys also in the audience. It's a pleasure always to be here along with Supriya ma'am and with Sainath and other friends in the audience. Thank you so much for inviting me over to talk about this. I'd like to, so as Kavita said, Sainath spoke about a lot of things which connected us to women and climate change, but I'd like to share 2-3 stories, not so much in terms of data, but a couple of stories I wanted to share. Can we go on to the next image? Kavita was talking about impacts on women and how women are differently impacted. In fact, before can we stay on the first slide, please? Before going into the stories, I'd like to briefly touch upon why I think this is not just about women. It's about I'd like to say women and other genders as well. We know that we are in a world where there are women and then there are other women, men, and then there are other genders as well. So to be more inclusive, I know for sure that it's not only a fact that not only women but persons of other genders also are impacted by climate change, and they are impacted differently from men as well, like women. So, and gender is a social construct. It's not biological. The fact that there are women, men, and there are people of other genders, it's a biological thing. But what roles are assigned to them, how they are perceived in society is a mindset. And that perception is gender. So when we talk about how women or people of other gender are differently impacted by climate change, it's very important to understand. In the morning, Sainath was talking about role division and unpaid labor. This role division comes from historically us dividing roles or having a certain perception about how women should behave, how women should dress, what is the work that women should do, as opposed to how men should behave, how men should dress, what kind of work men should do. So this essential division of roles and the perceptions and the roles that we have attributed to women and people of other genders in society is what determines the impacts also. Kavita spoke about tsunami. I'd like to speak about so many other instances where we see that women are at the receiving end. Why? Because of the roles that they've been given in society. We know for sure that in Bangladesh, when I used to work with Oxfam in Bangladesh, when there was the cyclone, which devastated Bangladesh and Sundarbans, a large part of Sundarbans as well, a large number of casualties was women. The reason being the fact that the way women dress makes it difficult for them to run when water washes in, along with a cyclone. In floods, we've seen in North Bihar floods, constantly we've seen the 2017 floods, we've seen how the number of casualties in women is very, very high. Again, it's attributed to the fact that a girl child is not allowed to learn how to swim. The likelihood of a boy as a kid to learn how to swim is much higher than a girl getting that same opportunity in a village or even in a city. A girl child learning how to swim, which is a life skill. It doesn't have to be about women or men, but then that's the role, that's how society works, So in times of a disaster, the likelihood of a girl child losing her life or a woman losing her life is very high, merely because of the way gender has been perceived by us and the role that we've given. The dress that we wear, in the cyclone, it was very clearly documented in an Oxfam study that more women casualties occurred because women, because of the way they were dressing, with their saris which got wet, they were not able to escape or run faster. Similarly, the roles that are socialized in women from childhood, their job is to take care of the children, take care of the valuables, take care of the older people. So the whole caregiving, nurturing role that's set aside for them. So even in a disaster, when a woman is running, she just doesn't run away by herself, unlike men. So she'll pick up 2 children, she'll pick up the most valuable documents because she is thinking that, okay, where am I going from here? I'm going into a makeshift camp, on the roadside, right? So I need my documents, I need for my family. So this thing that's socialized for women becomes a barrier for her, and so hence women are impacted differently. You've seen how, in women have been prey to sexual violence, mostly after disasters. There's lots of documented evidence of when women are moved, or when whole populations are moved into shelters after a big disaster. the women and girls, adolescent girls there are subject to sexual violence. So there's a high incidence of sexual violence when they are put in these shelters where post-disasters. So these are all challenges that women or people of other genders face by virtue of the fact that they are women, which is different from being a man. Again, access is a big issue. So I'd like to share two stories of climate change from the women's perspective from two different geographies, one from Maharashtra and one from Bihar. They are about water, but one is about drought, the other is about floods and how it differently impacts women. Can we go to the next slide? So this is the story of Pani Bais, the water wives of Dengamal village in Maharashtra, which is this village is around 185 kilometers away from Mumbai, and it has a small population of around 500 people. And in this country where polygamy is abolished by law, it's illegal to have multiple wives. In this village, you have this polygamy has restarted for exactly the reasons that Sainath was talking in the morning. Why? Because women are seen as people who can carry water for the family. So this eligibility of marriage, your only eligibility when you're pulled out of school that's left with you is that are you strong enough to carry water for the family? And if you're strong enough to carry water, you will be married off. That becomes your eligibility in a drought affected area. So here in this village, the nearest water source is actually 6 hours away. There's a dam and a well near the dam, which is the only water source for the village. So in monsoons, when there's a non-monsoon season, women have to walk 6 hours in a day to get water for the village and household for drinking and sanitation purposes. What happens is people in the village, the men in the village started marrying more wives, having more women. The reason for that was their first wife actually has all the legal rights of a wife. The second wife or the third wife, who is younger, is often a widowed woman or a single woman in the village who's already vulnerable because she's single, she's poor, she's marginalized, she's from another community. So you have cases where women marry more women, and the younger women are brought into the family as wives, and their only job is to fetch water. They just go and fetch water for the family. So when the water table goes down and further down with drought, climate impacted drought or climate impacted reasons, these women spend more and more hours on the road walking down. So if they walk 3 hours a day, with changing climate patterns and seasons, they end up walking 12 hours a day just fetching water. In return, they get the address of having a husband, that okay, she's so-and-so's wife. She gets a room in that house, she gets food. That's all that she's asking for. So that's the kind of vulnerability we are talking when we talk about climate change. This is not like, it's a well-reported story, you can read it, it's also online. Again, just can we move on to the next slide? I'd like to take you to Bihar from Maharashtra, where the issue is not lack of water, where the issue is abundance of water. The North Bihar floods, everybody knows, every year the Kosi River floods in Bihar. It's like every year. Every year North Bihar is inundated with floods. 2017 was really, really bad. It was more pathetic. And this image is of a lady who, along with her, who was a single woman, again in her village, she moved into a roadside. So on the NH, the national highway, there was a makeshift tents that was set up as a rehabilitation camp post the flood. She moved into that camp along with her teenage daughter. So a man approached her and said that I can marry your daughter and I will live in this village with your daughter. This lady, because of her poverty and her marginalization, she took 5,000 rupees from that person and she married off her teenage daughter to this man. The man, who promised to stay in the same village, moved out of this village, went off to Chandigarh with his new wife, and soon there was a lot of violence in that marriage. In 6 months down the lane, and when he tried to further sell her off to somebody else, she escaped from that violence, and somehow, you know, she managed to come back home. When she came back to that village, the village was not ready to accept her. She is the dropout student. She's the teenager who would have dropped out from school, you know, out of poverty, who was subject to all of this. She was subject to human trafficking. Why? Because she landed in a disaster which made her stay in a place which made her very prone to these kind of people who could just attack her. So these are two stories. But I just don't want to talk about women as victims here, you know. I feel women are also leaders in solutions, you know. They are playing a huge leadership role in bringing solutions. So in Maharashtra, where you have the Pani Bais or Pani wives, you also have a large number of women in the community who are setting up Pani committees, you know, and they are working together to revive the water bodies in their villages. They are working to look at how their traditional water system was, you know, water management system was, how it was eroded, and now they've understood the need for, you know, reworking on those systems. And now you have villages in Maharashtra where women are playing a leadership role to rejuvenate water bodies in their villages, which is a solution. So women are also in a lot of leadership role, you know, doing solutions. Can we move to the next slide? One such, this is again, you know, very connected to climate change, but not spoken of as a direct link, because we all know that fossil fuel-based energy systems are the major contributors of climate change. So there are communities in the central Indian belt. So these images are from, you know, Singrauli district in Madhya Pradesh, where again, you know, in this region, that there are the sizable population in that region is tribal. There's a huge population that is tribal, and then there are non-tribal communities as well, but they're all forest-dependent communities. They derive their lives and livelihoods from forests. And we all know, we talk about the Green India Mission, we talk about greening the planet, we talk about planting trees. Why do we talk about all of these things? Because we know how important forests are, how important a carbon sink of forest is, right? So these communities live in the forest, their livelihoods are dependent on the forests, their lives are built around these forests. But you had mining companies coming in to mine out this entire forest. Basically 1,182 hectares of forest land was threatened to be mined out, with 54 villages were threatened to be displaced by that mine. We don't see this as, and then you saw that women, you can see in the image on the left side, you can see how women fought. From 2009 to 2015, the movement was led by women in these villages. They fought to save their forests, save themselves from being displaced. That also is a proxy battle to save, you know, fight climate change, because they fought to save our carbon sink, that big forest which would otherwise have been cut down, you know, and coal mined up and burnt up, causing carbon emissions. They stopped it to, you know, for their lives, their livelihoods, as well as for this planet and for us. So again, this woman, so they fought this long battle for till 2015, and in 2015 they went through a lot of issues, you know, and challenges. They were jailed, they were beaten. There are cases that are still ongoing in this fight. But finally, they were able to get that mine deallocated. They were able to save the livelihoods of 54 villages. They were able to save a huge carbon sink, because today as we sit here, we talk about, you know, trees and, you know, carbon markets and, you know, the need for planting trees and, you know, selling it and offsetting carbon and all of that. So what these women were essentially doing is playing. We all know the Chipko movement, you know, it was started by women. It was women led. So women play a very, very important role. They're not just, of course they are vulnerable, and they are on the other side. The vulnerabilities that climate change bring to them are very different, but they are playing a huge leadership role to also bring out solutions, and they are fighting every day. There are small battles in every part of this country which women are fighting to save their access to natural resources, to save climate to save the environment and protect this planet.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Priya சொன்ன ரொம்ப முக்கியமான ஒரு பாயிண்ட் வந்து எப்படி women are also leading and fighting against climate change. நம்ம தமிழ்நாட்டிலே நிறைய பார்த்துருப்போம். And one thing that I wanted to add to her is perhaps the way the women protest are much different from the way the men protest. நம்ம வந்து சிப்கோல அவங்க சொன்ன சிப்கோல பார்த்தா they just go and hug the trees. And in Kudangulam, all of us, like in Puvalagi Nanbargal, we were there at Kudangulam, and it was a women-led protest against a nuclear reactor, where I saw them sitting and cooking, community kitchen start panni, ange samachi, anga saapar. That was a form of protest. Greenham Common protest against England and another protest la vandu, one major form of protest was to hang sanitary napkins and diapers, because the message that they wanted to say was that they were standing, they are fighting for the generations that were to come, நாங்கள் எங்களுக்காக ஃபைட் பண்ணல, we are fighting for our kids, we are fighting for our children. That was the message that they wanted to say. And these are the kind of protests that the women always advocated. They were about real development, they were about real life. And that's what I wanted to add. But I would now request Supriya ma'am to, she as a bureaucrat, as a very senior bureaucrat, she would have seen lots of women and how they've been affected, and she's also been advocating solutions. So maybe you should also talk about the solutions that you have personally brought in.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I really lost count of the number of times I've come to your beautiful college, and always a pleasure to meet such bright and very talented group of girls over here. Really very happy to be here. Thank you very much for this honor. கவிதா பேசும்போது சொல்யூஷன்ஸ் என்ன, நம்ம வந்து எப்படி டிசைன் பண்ணணும்னு நீங்கள் கேட்டீங்க. நம்ம வந்து climate change ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம் டிசைன் பண்ணுறோம், ஒரு மிஷன் டிசைன் பண்ணுறோம். If it is designed with the different variations in mind, the kind of challenges we have, it's actually not a very easy thing to design when you design a climate program.
Right, yeah.
So what's the best way to design to make sure that everybody gets represented? நீங்க grassroots ல இருந்தேவும் women ல இருந்து நீங்க feedback எடுத்துட்டு தான் நீங்க டிசைன் பண்ணா சரியா வரும்.
Yes.
So one thing which I have seen, ஏற்கனவே நீங்க எல்லாரும் சொன்ன மாதிரி, they are already so burdened. Whether any kind of a disaster, they are already very burdened. So the best thing when you design a program is don't burden them anymore. எப்பவுமே நம்ம வந்து டிசைன் பண்ணும்போது என்ன சொல்றேன், விமனுக்கு வந்து கொடுத்தா அவங்க நல்லா பண்ணுவாங்க, நல்லா தான் பண்ணுவாங்க, அதுல ஒன்றும் டவுட் இல்லை. பட் தென் தே ஆர் ஆல்சோ கெட்டிங் really burdened with so much of programs, so much of schemes which is kind of coming on to them. I think one lesson which I have learned is that it is very important to make sure that three things happen, especially when you talk about marginalized women.
Yeah.
Thanks to the education, empowerment, there is no doubt, let's not deny that those who are getting good education, good opportunities, they are at least able to able to go forward.
Yeah.
But there are groups which are not able to have access. I think it's important, இப்போ climate change பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் we must make sure that what are the things that are, let me first say what exactly is likely to happen. What is going to happen is that community assets இருக்குல்ல நம்ம கிட்ட, whether wetlands இருக்கலாம் or water resources நீங்க சொல்றீங்க அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கலாம், or you have the land resources, or you have agriculture resources, isn't it? Does it belong to women? So இது வந்து நீங்க எவ்வளோ சொன்னாலும், எவ்வளோ நீங்க challenges பத்தி பேசினாலும், அவங்கள்ட்ட அந்த கம்யூனிட்டி ரிசோர்சஸ் இல்லைன்னா அவங்க மேனேஜ் பண்ண முடியாது. Can we have programs to have these community resources owned by women? I think that's an important thing, and the point that we are looking at the Tamil Nadu's climate change program.
Okay.
So if you look at the missions that we have 3 missions in Tamil Nadu. We have climate change mission, wetlands mission, and green Tamil Nadu mission. All these missions, they are aimed at improving community resources that are with women. I'll give one example. இப்போ ஒரு பிச்சாவரம் அலையாத்தி காடுகள் or mangroves as we all know. That's a very important place and everybody knows that mangroves are super fighters against the adverse impact of climate change, isn't it? Mangroves, I think 8 to 11 times they are much more powerful than forests, other normal forests, because they have the capability to fix carbon more. So அங்கே வந்து ஒரு தடவை அங்கே போகும்போது மேன்க்ரோவ்ஸ்க்கு வந்து ஒரு போட்டில் இருக்கும்போது ஒரு பக்கத்துல ஒரு ஃபேமிலி ஹஸ்பண்ட் ஒய்ஃப் ஒரு சின்ன போட்டில் இருந்தாங்க. அந்த ஃபேமிலி கிட்ட நான் பேசினேன், எப்படி இருக்குது உங்களுக்கு இப்போ, முன்னாடி எப்படி இருந்தது, இப்போ நீங்கள் வந்து ஒரு உங்கள் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் என்ன இருக்குது. அண்ட் they explained it to me. The woman told me, முன்னாடி ஒரு மணி நேரத்துக்குள்ள நிறையா ஃபிஷ் நமக்கு வந்து கிடைக்கும், வெரைட்டி ஆஃப் ஃபிஷ் இருக்கும், crabs and so many other things, shrimp they will get. But what is happening now, 5-6 hours வந்து ஃபிஷிங் பண்ண பிறகு கூட அவ்வளோ குவான்டிட்டி கிடைக்கிறது இல்லை, அவ்வளோ வெரைட்டி கிடைக்கிறது இல்லை. We don't have to go, it is not rocket science to understand what climate science is doing to the communities and especially to women. What is the answer? The answer is, if that local resource or if that brackish water, it belongs to that local community and they have the power to make sure that no pollution comes over here in that particular place, they will be able to make use of that facility better. So that is one point. Let us make sure that all these community resources, they belong to the local community groups, especially women. So ownership rights, I personally feel, is very important. Second thing, in order to fight the adverse impact of climate change, what's the thing that is something which is very important but totally neglected, which is One Health. Me and Sundar, we keep discussing this, that you know these jargons which the world throws at you, One Health, and you know carbon sink and all this kind of it. So I think one important thing is, do women really understand what this climate change is all about? They may not understand it, they are still fighting it. We don't have to really tell them. They have the solutions. As we are talking, they are already fighting this. But I think what is more important is demystifying all these jargons. That is something which is important. So what is this carbon sink? What is this, the kind of CO2 that we are talking about, global warming that we are talking about. So I think there has to be a kind of a very important understanding that we need to demystify so that they do understand. That is one thing. The third thing is about One Health I spoke about. All of you are, in a position where you can talk about and take care of your own health, but do you really do it? That is something which most women ignore, even young women. What about the public health systems that we have to take care of the health challenges that are going to come in view of the climate change risks that we have? We need to look at that. Whether our public health institutions equipped, they are having enough facilities to take care of the challenges, which is different kinds of diseases, especially cancers, especially relating to cancers which affect women. That is something which we need to look at, build our public institutions, build the capabilities of our health systems to take care of the pressure that is going to come. I think our design of our mission is very much rooted in that. That is something which I wanted to talk about. Third thing, I spoke about the community resources. How do you make these community resources are accessible to women so they don't have to travel 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers just of 2 pots of water which they carry so many miles in the scorching sun? How do you make sure? That is the question we need to ask. So availability of the potable water, availability of drinking water resources at the community level. And for that, it is important to restore back our forests. It is very important to make sure we have, so let me just give some practical examples and not only give some lecture as to what should be done. I do not know whether what we are doing it adequate, but I know we are doing it right. So one program that we are doing is creating these community forests, which we are calling it as Margada Punjolais. We have 100 community forests already kind of identified, areas identified. We are handing it over to the local community after plantation to make sure that the community has access to the firewood, has access to fruits, has access to medicinal plants, and the access to fodder. This is also not only water, but grazing, fodder, availability of firewood, all of that is very, very important. That is something which is very important. Our wetland mission is also kind of targeted at that. I think I'd like to stop here with the third important point. I spoke first about the right that they should have on community asset. I spoke about health aspect, which is very important. Third is income. And I think that is something which is very important. How in the wake of climate change, we try and create additional income opportunities for women. I'll give you one small example. In Madurai, I had the opportunity to visit a particular place outside, outskirts of Madurai. And I was so happy to see this entire thing is run by women. They are all, sweepers, scavengers. They have come together. They are collecting this waste earlier, which used to go for the landfill. They used to only sweep and they just used to get whatever the municipality used to provide, the local panchayat actually, outskirts of municipality. Now they have set up a facility which allows them to segregate the waste, and they are taking the waste to a kind of a biogas plant, which is helping them to make gas, which they are selling to the hotels and getting some additional income, and their income is almost double. So there is a lot of opportunity in all these interventions where we can try and improve the health of women, income of women. I think these are some practical solutions that I would definitely like to suggest. And I forgot about the last and important thing. When I spoke about, when I wanted to talk about nutrition aspects of women, I think the public distribution systems also should be looked at from a climate lens to see that what kind of nutritional supplements are available for communities, especially for women, to take care of their health and the health of their families also, but first their health in a much better fashion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. I mean, maybe with the permission I can add that there is also an announcement in the budget about giving auto rickshaws to women, and
yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that, ma'am? Because I thought that was a very interesting thing, please.
So, I strongly believe that economic empowerment is also equally important as other aspects of empowerment. All of us, when we study, as students, you are all studying, all of you want to get into a good job so that you have your own source of income. Last time when I was here, I mentioned this, that every woman must try and earn some money of her own. Even if your husband is earning, doesn't really matter. Not because of anything else, because when you actually work, you get up in the morning, you get ready, you step out of the house, you meet so many people, you read newspaper, you look at the news, you learn so much. It keeps this brain ticking, and something happens over here. So that's why when you say that they are confined into homes, they are not allowed to come, more than that psychological trauma of just being confined to a very close space, it's also very, very important to know that your brain stops working because you are not able to interact. You're not able to do something on your own. So this self-worth, I'm able to do something on my own. For me, it's very important. For every woman, it should definitely be something which should propel her in that direction. So what we are designing, and I'm not saying I'm designing it, we actually sat with a group of women and asked them, how do I make sure that your income is enhanced? Something that you can do comfortably, something that not puts an additional burden on you, that you are going and selling in this scorching sun, and it kind of puts you in a situation where you are tired at the end of the day. What is it that you would like to do? And then we all sat down, and then this thing came that why not we have autos given to women, which they themselves will drive, the e-autos, so that there is no pollution, which will help these self-help groups of women to sell their produce comfortably, and also giving an opportunity. So we had a selfish interest saying that நீங்க மஞ்சு போய் கொஞ்சம் செல் பண்ணீங்க, நீங்க கிளாஸ் பாட்டில்ஸ்னா ஈகோ மேட்டர்ஸ்ல கொஞ்சம் நீங்க பண்றீங்களா? கண்டிப்பா நாங்க பண்றோம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு then இந்த ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம் வந்து பட்ஜெட்ல அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணிருக்கோம் that 500 women groups will have access to grant of an auto which they will design the way they want to. ஏன்னா அவங்க நிறைய பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க, நிறைய பொருட்கள் எல்லாம் ரெடி பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. ஸோ இந்த ஆட்டோ மூலமாக அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு மார்க்கெட்டிங் ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டிஸ் கிடைக்கும். They will be comfortably able to go and also spread the message of
climate change.
Climate change, and also talk about plastic pollution and things like that. So thank you, Kavita, for reminding me.
Thank you so much. I think we are actually running out of time. We have some time left for questions if there is any, but I just wanted to add something because there was so much talked about water vibes, and Sainath also mentioned how one of the categories for marriage eligibility is the women's ability to get water. Something not so bad, but something similar is I have seen it happen in places like Ramanathapuram, Thoothukudi, where we have something called water vehicles. Na 4-5 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடி போனப்போ இருந்துச்சு. The women can push the vehicle and it can take up to 5 pots of water. And I've seen those women pushing those vehicles around. Adla romba interesting ana vishayam enna, if there are people from Ramanathapuram, Thoothukudi who know this, girls please put your hands up, because I know that na anga kelli pattadhu vandu these water vehicles are part of dowry in those areas. And I've seen it. I'm hoping to go back there and find out if it's still there, but I'm sure it will be there whenever.
I can say that it's still there, at least up until May this year, because I just want to add to that region is where we also happen to have a large-scale solar plant run by Adani. The reason I was researching that was we found that Adani has been illegally extracting water in Kamudi, which was the only drinking water source of 25 panchayats. That's a water-stressed region already, and Adani was illegally extracting water to clean their panels, which led to further the water table, going down. And this whole story of, women and these, one pot of water costs 20 rupees, by the way. A single pot of water costs 20 rupees. And every day people go and purchase that water. 5 pots can be put in one thing. Every household that you go, you will find this. I don't know whether it goes as dowry.
It goes as dowry,
women,
yeah.
Definitely, I've seen women queuing up with these trolleys, with water pots, and then that's a reality in one part of your state itself.
I know it.
And there is a very strong connect of corporate invasion annexes there, which has a lot to do with the water extraction in the region, and the reason why that region also is going through this kind of a water stress is exacerbated by this kind of illegal water extraction for huge projects. Again, why it's illegal is because one tanker of water is illegally extracted and taken for around 300 rupees. One entire tanker, which has more than 12,000 liters of water. So that's what the price at which Adani takes water, and the price at which people purchase is, you know the disparity.
So I know it's part of dowry there. So I'm throwing open the floor for questions to Priya, to Supriya ma'am, anyone please.
If you have any questions regarding the sessions, please raise your hand. Our volunteers will reach you.
10 நிமிஷம் தான் இருக்கு. Yeah, 10 minutes.
Hi, I am Divya. One of the questions as a resident in Chennai is that how is the infrastructure in Chennai thought about in terms of availability of resources, including water, underground or otherwise, and also in terms of livability. The question of livability arises in the sense that in IT corridor or so, there are so many buildings coming up. But let's say I live in a particular area. What is the capacity that it can hold in terms of extraction of water? What is the capacity of air pollution it can sustain? What is the for air quality and so on, and also the heat island effect. In that sense, can the government look at something where locally it can be informed to people so that they are locally aware and at least they can make decisions, at least personal decisions also can be influenced that way if they are locally aware of the capacities of individual places, local places. In that sense, let's say Velachery Taluk or something, that level is something I'm interested in knowing from Ms. Supriya Sahu ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have recently released this report, which is the Climate Action Plan for Chennai, which has been a document which has been prepared only with a lot of discussion with the housing societies, the vulnerable communities. It has been a document in the making for more than 2 years. So this document has been released. It's a document which actually says what steps would be taken when it comes to water. It also gives you the inventory. It also gives you the greenhouse gas inventory. You can look up this document on the website of the Greater Chennai Corporation. It's available. And you asked a very important question about what a local community should be doing about, say, an island effect, or about the kind of greening of the building or cooling off that building. So this, the document has just come out. The action plan needs to be, rolling out very soon. So there are 2 things that we are doing. One, working with the societies, the resident welfare associations, and I think Priya also knows about it. We're trying to see, these are the 3 or 4 things that the resident welfare associations can do to kind of reduce the heat island effect that you spoke about. But a massive greening in urban areas, more than the rural areas, is the priority of the government at this point of time. So in Chennai, a huge number of trees have been planted, but again, not the kind of just a plantation and leaving it, but this time in a very different manner, where tall seedlings with the focus on survival and the local community taking care of it, for maintenance. So those are the small things. Chennai Corporation has also embarked on the clearance of the legacy waste, which is at, we know that Perungudi and all these places, where the legacy waste is next 1 year is going to be completely over. Also the third thing, I spoke about the bio-CNG, collection of the waste. So you would see that most of this waste is now kind of not yet 100%, but a lot of effort to kind of segregate it and create. So there is a setup here which makes bio-CNG out of these, and the gas is going to the various hotels. So it will take a bit of a time, but yes, and solar rooftop also is, thank you Priya for reminding me. So a kind of a network of organizations which will work together has already been kind of done, and I think it's a long way to go, but the action plan that we have for Chennai is already set. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, you said that community resources, women do not have a bigger hand on that, but men do have a hand on it. But I just want to know how this community forest thing works, because you also said that local groups should have a hand over it. But will there be any inspection kind of thing if these local groups have a bigger hand on these community forests, and if they try to do something illegal work, if they try to do any illegal work, what will it result to? And can you just give a gist on how this will work on completely?
Can I start? Interesting question. So there's a law in this country called the Forest Rights Act. This law was passed in 2006. It started getting implemented in 2008. The interesting thing about this law is that it's a law that got passed after many, many years of struggle by indigenous communities, Adivasis, and other forest-dwelling communities in the country. Not just from one part of the country, every part of the country. So this was like a call for many, many years. And there's a reason, like you just said, that illegal use by community. I can give you I can give you many examples where it's a myth that communities, use forests and common pasture lands illegally. Communities have a very, they have a hereditary right over this land. So historically, before the Indian Forest Act came into, being, the Britishers when they came over, the forest actually belongs to communities. That's the fact. The forest belongs to communities. The Britishers came in, and there's a lot of political thing, I don't have that much of time, I won't go in depth, but we know why the forests came under the forest department and why the forests were taken away from communities and why it became illegal for communities to enter forests or, common areas, This is something that belonged to them. So to say that, it's illegal for community, they will do something illegal, it's a social construct that communities go and destroy forests, communities go and destroy, pasture land or common land. It's a narrative that's been built over years by lots of people, including large companies. If you look at the Central Indian belt, just take a few states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, parts of Maharashtra, West Bengal, where you will find there is an overlap of indigenous community habitats, that is Adivasis. There are Adivasis in the northeastern part and the western Ghats, but prominently in the Central Indian belt you will find Adivasis. There's an overlap between forest land, Adivasi habitats, as well as huge companies that mine iron ore, coal, bauxite. So, these companies came in, they in fact illegally take over. So when I referred to Singrauli district, SR and Hindalco in their joint venture were proposing to mine out 1,182 hectares of forest land. And when I say mine out, it means like how is the mines in India are all open cast. It means that you go into a region, you cut out the entire forest, you remove the topsoil and create what is called an overburden, which is an artificial mountain of waste, because the coal seams are below the earth. So what you create is like a big crater, which out there, right? And in that process, you destroy the entire biodiversity of that region. You snatch away lives and livelihoods of communities who've historically depended on those forests. You know that there is a very strong narrative that has been built which says that, the communities are destroying forests. The communities are the people who are creating all this destruction. But you look at statistics and data, it's not communities. In fact, communities, why will I destroy something that my life depends on? Why would an Adivasi go into a forest and destroy the forest when their food, their life, their livelihood, their culture, their being, everything revolves around that forest? Why will I go and destroy that? Would I just go and raise down my house? I wouldn't, right? So this is a narrative that's been built over years in this whole sphere with, and by companies and capitalists to say that indigenous communities, why? Because they hold access to, they don't have access, they were taken away, and now there is the community forest right. So the Forest Rights Act is a law which gives two kinds of rights. One is the community forest rights, which a Gram Sabha can claim over the, in the forests around there with their villages. And there are individual rights that go to individual households or people who've been historically inhabiting that law. So there is a law. There is a law that gives you the right to claim that forest. And that right includes governance of forest, it includes protection of forest, it includes the rights of collecting minor non-timber forests like honey, like mahua, tendu, firewood and basically living their lives peacefully. So it's a myth that communities destroy forests. That's a myth that's been constructed.
I think we'll finish. Thank you so much to both the panelists. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much.
We thank all the panelists for taking the time to join us today. It was heavily thought-provoking panel discussion. It was amazing to witness such powerful women fight for this global cause. It has been nothing short of a memorable event for the young minds present here who have so much to take back from this informative panel discussion. Gratitude is when memory is stored in the heart and not in the mind. I request Mr. G. Sundarajan from Poovoolagan Nambargal to deliver the word of thanks.
Good, and people were listening. The audience was very engaged.
In the invitation that we have designed for this event, there is a statement by Ms. Robinson, the former Prime Minister of Ireland. It says climate change man-made problem. That has been driving us to organize events on climate change. And the issue of climate change needs to be talked from intersectionalities. Climate change in gender, climate change in caste. Climate change in gender, climate change in caste, class. So we need to discuss a lot on the intersectionalities. I think in that work, this is our long journey that we are looking ahead. And our starting point we had with MOP Vaishnav College Women and Climate event is it gives a lot of hope. ஏன்னா எந்தெந்த போராட்டங்களில் வந்து பெண்கள் வந்து முன்னின்றிருக்காங்களோ அந்த போராட்டங்கள் வெற்றி பெற்றிருக்கு. நிலத்தை காக்கும் போராட்டமாக இருக்கட்டும், so we strongly believe that women will definitely capture this earth from men like us and ensure a peaceful and a prosperous future for our next generation. So to make this happen, I would like to thank Mr. Sainath, who took all his time. I know he's very busy. Even when we were traveling together, he was talking to somebody, fixing a meet at night 10:30 in a Zoom call. He was doing that. So thank you, Mr. Sainath, for all your time and presence. We always admire, in fact, myself, Kavita, and many others in our team, we will always admire his dedication, his care for details. He goes to the last point and cares for the details. Thank you so much for that. Also, Madam Supriya Sahu, Additional Chief Secretary to Government of Tamil Nadu Forest, Environment and Climate Change. Whenever we ask her, she never says no. You know what? Today she is heading a program with World Bank on wetland conservation. He took her time off from that very, very important meeting to speak to you all, to meet you all, so that she delivers the message to you. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are honored by your presence. I would also like to thank Priya, who has traveled all the way from Pune yesterday night after a 3 days continuous meeting. Thank you, Priya. Thank you so much for attending this. And definitely, a sincere and a very heartfelt thank goes to Kavita Muralidharan, senior journalist and part of Poovoolagan Nambargal. She has been coordinating this event to the finest detail. And MOP Vaishnav College, especially the Community Radio Department, the principal, Dr. Archana Prasad, she was very, very meticulous in her detailing. And also, I'd like to thank Dr. Anureka, the Dean Research and the station head of MOP Community Radio Station. And all the students, young students from MOP Vaishnav College and from other colleges of Chennai, really you have made this day big. A big thank you to all. I also like to appreciate our team members from Poovoolagan Nambargal. I don't want to name everyone, but everyone has struggled toiled in the last couple of weeks to make this happen. Thank you all. This is just a beginning. We'll keep doing this. Thank you all.
I request everyone to raise for the national anthem.
Raghu.
Car தமிழ்
I request students to remain seated until the dignitaries clear the venue.
I once again request the audience to be seated.